Welcome back to Grounds Under Review. I'm your host, Hugh Fike. Today is episode 3 of Grounds Under Review. We're going to cover a golf trip that my buddy Hunter Hobart, Ryan Colby, and I took out to Idaho, which isn't what you would consider to be a golf trip state, but it's a good trip. Before we get into that, we're going to just rewind to last week, covered fall lawn care, the basics there, kind of a schedule to follow, what you should be doing through the fall and into the winter. And then, in future episodes, we'll cover kind of what you should be doing in the late winter, early spring. This will be an ongoing series, so keep your eye out for that next episode. If you like this content, like, share, subscribe. Keep me motivated to keep on doing this and keep the passion project alive. So with that, we'll jump right into talking to Hunter Hobart. Hunter, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here.
Great to have you here. You're up from North Carolina this week doing some work up here in D.C. and going to be up here this full week. So we thought it'd be a good chance to get together and talk about a little bit of what we did earlier in this spring. So we took a golf trip this spring out to Idaho. We went to Boise, played a course there, and then traveled up to Worley, Idaho, the bustling metropolis, and played on the Circling Raven golf course, which was on an Indian reservation up there, the Coeur d'Alene tribe. And then moseyed up to Coeur d'Alene, which is just a short drive up the road, to play the Coeur d'Alene Golf Club, which has got the famous sort of island green out there. I guess rewinding to last year, we decided that we wanted to do a guy's trip. We went down to North Carolina, where you're from. We stayed on the compound of the Hobarts there in Winston, and made day trips down. We played. We went and played the Cradle, which is the short par 3 course there at Pinehurst, and then went to Tobacco Road, hustled over there, which was a wild golf course. It's not normal golf; it's wild golf. And then we played Country Club of North Carolina, thanks to a connection, and then a private golf course there, which was spectacular. We'll get into that maybe later. And then played at Pine Needles, which is the famed historic course over there, where in the Mid Pines area. But focusing on this trip, talk a little bit about how it came to be, and then we'll dive into some of the coffee shops and other things we did. But I'm curious, kind of in short summary, how'd you get into golf? What keeps you interested? What are your current golf goals?
Yeah, in terms of like how I got into golf, I didn't really grow up playing golf. You know, my grandparents actually were big golfers. I grew up in Florida. So I had played a couple of times. My grandparents on my mom's side were big golfers. They lived in the Orlando area, so a lot of golf to be had. And they kind of did that whole thing. I remember maybe my only like real formative golf experience growing up was I went golfing with my brother and my grandparents one time, and I was probably, 8 or 9 years old, but played well enough to impress my grandfather, and it was around my birthday, so for my birthday, he ended up gifting me a Big Bertha Callaway driver, which he was a big Callaway guy. So I still have that driver. I was playing it until I started playing the driver I bought off you. But didn't really play golf otherwise. And then, like happened to a lot of people during COVID, it's like one of the only things to do. You know, golf courses were still open. It was outdoors. And then my in-laws actually around that time moved to a country club over near Hickory, North Carolina called Rock Barn Golf and Country Club. And so now every time I'm over there, I've kind of got an excuse to play. So really got into it a couple of years ago. And then, that's how these kind of trips got going.
Yeah. So we had never been on a trip before. A bunch of our buddies had kind of trying to, patch something together. I guess one of the key factors was keeping it cheap. So we stayed at your guys' house, which was a lot of fun, and kind of made these day trips down there. If you stay on the grounds of Pinehurst, it can be really expensive, but not only the daily fee, but also it's just staying in the hotel. So we started out with the Cradle. What were your first impressions? What did you think of being down there on the Pinehurst property?
Yeah, I mean, even being just a little over an hour up the road, I had never been to Pinehurst before we went over there that first morning. And so you kind of get there and it's just golf mecca, right? I mean, you got the kind of big stately clubhouse with, the rocking chairs overlooking the 18th green on Pinehurst number 2. And then you can really tell they put a lot of work into the Cradle and the short course. At Thistledew, they've got that putting, 18-hole putting area, and you can just tell, it's, golf's a big deal in Pinehurst. So yeah, it was great to be there. The vibe is very relaxed. You got a lot of people like playing the Cradle with their shoes off and, drink in hand. And I mean, one of our buddies actually got a hole in one on one of the Cradle holes. So that was neat. And it was like a great way to start off the trip.
Yeah. Ryan, It was number 3, I think. He hit it, and the kind of the green was like a little bit of a bowl, so you couldn't really see where the ball
kind
went.
of elevated.
Yeah, and then and the ball disappeared, but the right above that green there was the bar out there, and there were a handful of people out there. It's kind of late or mid spring or whatever, having some drinks, and they started cheering. And of course, I thought they were like totally messing with him. And so I was telling him he didn't hit a hole in one, and they were all cheering for him. And so we get up there, and the ball's not in, not on the green; it's in the cup. And so that was pretty fun. Got to change the number on the board. Got this little special hole in one chip.
I think he was like the 2,384th person to make a hole in one at the Cradle. So yeah, it happens a lot.
Yeah, so that was cool. So then we were there. We didn't complete it because we were kind of running short on time. And hustled over to Tobacco Road.
Yeah, it's a bit of a hike to get to Tobacco Road from Pinehurst. It's not like right there like some of these other courses. So,
yeah, it's like kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It's an old sand mine and quarry. And so we hustled there. Basically, didn't have any time to warm up. We tried renting these Finn cycles, which the guy, the starter guy there, was totally stiff armed me on. Like a Finn cycle is basically an electric motorcycle. You put your golf bag, you sit on it basically.
Yeah.
So we had to abandon that, and then we jumped into golf carts and took off. They're all gas powered golf carts, but when you show up on the first tee, I mean, we've been watching videos and sort of scheming this out for a while. You show up and you got this narrow little alleyway. What was your first impression of Tobacco Road? Was it what you saw in the videos?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get a sense of the place from watching videos. Like, you kind of expect for it to be, wild and crazy and the routings to be unique, but until you're standing there, you can't really get a sense of it. So you're basically looking at like the side of like a large hill or small mountain, and you're like, oh, I got to hit it over that. So it's very visually intimidating off the first tee. And yeah, to say Hugh was flustered on that first tee would be a massive understatement.
I was so upset. I couldn't believe that this guy was not helping me out and to get the thing going.
Yeah, he had his heart set on the Finn cycles.
I really wanted the Finn cycle. So you tee off, you kind of shoot through this narrow gap, and then you kind of get out there and you realize, you look back, you're like, yeah, there was a lot of Mike Strantz's golf course design was really about visual threats. I mean, the obviously the wasteland's not supposed an actual threat to shooting a low score, but there was very visually intimidating. And then as we progressed through the round, how'd you think it played out? What were some interesting parts? There's a huge wasteland with a big, big kind of valley on one side, but what hole kind of stands out to you, and what would you think would be interesting?
I mean, I think the hole that stands out to a lot of people is just that short par 3 on the back 9. I can't remember, which hole it is, but you hit it over water, and they've got like an old kind of like outbuilding or barn down there. So just standing on the tee box looking at it, that's one of the most beautiful holes on the course. I failed to hit the green in regulation on that, unfortunately. So
no
maybe
Coeur
next time, yeah.
And so you went through that round, finished kind of at the end of the day. The pro shop was great, kind of cool swag. So one of the fun things that we kind of have built into the trips are this routine of having kind of ridiculous conversations about everything, because they tend to be kind of far drives, but talking about the round, kind of what we liked, didn't like. I'm kind of half and half. If I would ever go back, I think I would, but it was $250 I think to play. And it's pretty wild. Not going out there with a caddy, I think, was kind of hard the first time, or anybody with any real knowledge to kind of help you.
Yeah, I don't even think they don't have caddies at Tobacco Road. I don't think. So.
Yeah, like a caddy book or whatever.
It would definitely be easier. I mean, I think this is true of all those Strands courses, because I've played Tot Hill now, since I played Tobacco Road, and they'd be much easier the second time around, just because you kind of know where to hit your shots.
Yeah, exactly. And then we played a country club in North Carolina. That place was pretty amazing. Had a lot of kind of upper class type of experiences. Not to dwell too much on it.
Felt underdressed.
Yeah, it was the driving range was pretty amazing. Kind of drive into this big gated thing. But the thing that stood out to me was just it didn't feel like there were any strands of grass that were out of place. Mm-hmm. It was all very tightly manicured.
The conditions were unbelievable.
Unbelievable. It was kind of late April, I think we played. So it was kind of right at the beginning of the southern growing season for grass and everything. So it was kind of ahead of that. And then we synced up with your brother, which was a lot of fun, and then played pine needles with him down there. That to me was probably the highlight experience. It's kind of twilight golf. This the brown pine needles kind of shining through the smell in the late afternoon sun. It was pretty awesome. What was your impression of pine needles?
Yeah, I mean, that was an epic day. And pine needles was fun for me to play, because actually my brother and I had been at the U.S. Women's Open. I think it was in either 2022 or 2023. They had it at Pine Needles, and so we had walked the whole course before, but obviously hadn't played it, and so it was fun to get to play that course after watching the women play it. And obviously we embarrassed ourselves a little bit, but yeah, I mean, just the historic nature of it is kind of something you don't get at one of these newer courses. People have been playing Pine Needles for 100 years, and yeah, I'd go back in a heartbeat.
Yeah, that was like kind of one of the cool things. You see pictures of them sculpting it with like horses and drawing these big screeds and stuff. It was really pretty cool. So let's fast forward to this year. So end of May, we decided that we were going to fly out to Idaho, stay at my parents' place. Thanks, Mom and Dad. And I took my daughter with me, and we went out there and had a pretty good time. It was still kind of cold. It was end of May, beginning of June, which they live in just outside Boise area, and then going up to Coeur d'Alene. It was a full 6.5, 7 hour drive north. So it's quite considerably north. We ended up settling on a place called Banbury Golf Club there in Boise. That was kind of a beat down of a day. You want to talk through a little bit about what happened?
Yeah, I mean, there are a handful of courses in the Boise area that we considered, and I think for this reason or that, we didn't play some of the other courses. But I think Banbury is kind of a hidden gem. I was pleasantly surprised by it. It was kind of a last minute thing, and it's just a neighborhood course, but it was in great shape, and I mean, we were all just thrilled to be out there. It's kind of we had gotten in late the night before and woke up, and we're just chomping at the bit to get on the course. So. Yeah, I thought Banbury was a great little course. A little harder than we expected it to
Way
be.
harder. It felt like there's water on every single hole.
Yeah, a tight course
Very tight.
for sure. Yeah, you had to keep the ball in front of you.
Yeah, so my dad actually joined us on the course and riding along,
mocked us.
Mocked us. Had a couple of beers, had a good time, and so we finished that, and then. Obviously went to the steakhouse that night, which was pretty awesome. There's a couple good steakhouses up in that area, and then hopped in the car and took off for Worley, Idaho, which if you've never been there, it's about 30 minutes. You've probably never been there. You probably never will go there. It's about 30 minutes south of Coeur d'Alene. This amazing little place. You kind of pull right off of the side of the highway. You're out in the middle of nowhere, driving through tons of Indian reservations, and you get out there. And then all of a sudden, this huge golf course kind of expands right in front of you. Normally, golf courses are built on about 100 acres, a little over that. This was on nearly 700 acres, which gives you kind of a perspective that we were out there driving between holes, and you wouldn't even see the next hole.
Yeah, I think they said there were like 7 or 8 miles of cart path at this place. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, you're out in what they call the Palouse, which is kind of the prairie land area. You're kind of crossing streams. One of the holes, there was a moose crossing. In fact, one of the guys I talked to about the course said every time he played there, which has been 3 or 4 times, you've seen a moose out there. So synced up with my cousin's husband. I had a great day. I thought the vibes were high. You didn't particularly have a fun time out there.
Yeah, I mean, you know how it goes. Like a lot of times your opinion of a course is kind of shaped by how well you play, and I played like a dog. So that kind of soured me on the course. But I will say the practice facilities at Circling Raven are easily the nicest practice facilities I've ever seen. At a golf course. So the vibes were high while we were warming up, and I didn't know that disaster was awaiting me as I was warming up. It wasn't, my game wasn't in total shambles on the range, but yeah, I mean, the course, you can't say enough, good things about it. The scale of the place is just like unimaginable. You can see kind of the mountains in the distance, and for the first handful of holes, you're kind of winding through the woods, and then you kind of just come out into the prairie, and you can see for miles and miles. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Like you could be on like a hole, and then there's like a buffer zone of like native wild grasses, and then they're farming wheat right next to it. So it's kind of this weird sort of dichotomy. But generally had a really good time. I'd go back there in a heartbeat. I think it was great. I mean, it's a little bit remote and out there, but I thought the price was fair. It was about
and we stayed at the casino there.
Yep.
It was like kind of a stay and play deal, and very reasonably priced. So yeah, I mean, I think it's worth the trip. If you're ever in Coeur d'Alene, to have that just 30 minutes away, it'd be a shame to miss it.
Yeah, I think that was probably my favorite course of the 3. But then we went to we stayed on property there, and then we went up to Coeur d'Alene. Had dinner that night in Coeur d'Alene with my uncle and my cousin. And great time there. And then woke up the next morning and we hit a coffee spot that I thought was pretty good. What was that?
We went to Evans Brothers Coffee right there in downtown Coeur d'Alene. So I had kind of poked around online and tried to find us some coffee shops to visit. So yeah, I was very impressed by Evans Brothers. It's kind of right on the main drag in Coeur d'Alene, which has a neat downtown. And we kind of fueled up there. Had a couple baked goods. I think I had a iced latte, and it was exceptional.
Yeah, I had just like regular pour over. It was really good. So I recommend Evansboro if you're. What was it called?
Evans Brothers.
Yeah, Evans Brothers. Yeah, if you're there, really great. And then then we jumped on the course kind of early that morning. It was pretty foggy, overcast. The cool thing about the resort there is that the driving range isn't a normal driving range. You're actually hitting golf balls into the water there in Lake Coeur d'Alene. If you know Lake Coeur d'Alene, it's very similar to Lake Tahoe. Very pristine, sort of clear lake. Alpine Lake, very high up. It's very pretty. But I don't know that I necessarily like that. It's kind of a unique feature, and I feel like the whole resort was kind of a unique feature in a lot of ways. But when you're on the driving range, you like to see where the ball lands and kind of rolls out to. So, but instead you're hitting them straight to these these locations, these targets out in the water. What'd you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways it's like a little gimmicky, but it's fun to see it splash, and that's neat. The rest of the practice area was nice too. They had pyramids balls for everybody, and then they had a nice little like chipping and putting area. I would say the greens were very fast, so we were chipping on the practice green. It was like hard to get it to stay on. Yeah.
They kind of closed down for the winter because it gets so cold up there, so it's kind of all bent grass, all really nice. I thought the fairways were in great condition. The greens were really great. I mean, pretty much from tee to green, everything was in really good shape. So you kind of tee off, you play the lower sort of end of it, but then as you progress through the front nine, you kind of climb up this hill, and you sort of then have these, par threes and you have a lot of undulation kind of up and down the hill a little bit. And then we play this kind of tournament every time. The last 2 times we've gone, where we factor in the indexes.
It's like cumulative net score over the course of the trip, and whoever has the lowest net score ends up winning the golf.
Yeah, so you won last year. This was my year to shine. I thought my golf game was kind of in a place where I could do all right. And then so we get to Coeur d'Alene, and Colby, our buddy Ryan Colby, who's kind of highest handicap of the bunch, but was playing out of his mind. Had like probably the best 3 rounds he ended up winning. So that was pretty fun. But you get to the kind of famous Island Green. We had been similarly to the whole Tobacco Road, kind of staring this one down for a long time, about 8 months, I guess, is how long we had it planned. And so we get up there, and the only thing we wanted to do is hit the green on the first shot, par 3. Talk us through how that went. What was your memory of the boat and everything?
I'm trying to remember the order that we went in. But I remember that we were playing with a fourth that we got paired with. And then one of the cool things about playing at that Coeur d'Alene course is you have to have a caddy. And so we had one caddy for the group, and he was kind of walking us through club selection and that sort of thing. So I remember I took more club. I think it was playing like maybe 155, 160 yards. I think I might have taken a 6-iron, just because you definitely don't want to be short. And so I ended up hitting a little bit of like a hooking draw. It bounced on the green, and then kind of got caught up in like the rough. They have like flower beds that are kind of waist area on the green, which is fine because it's like not like a natural feature. It's a free drop. So I didn't hit a green in regulation technically, but I got to drop and chip on. And then I got to watch Hugh and Colby step up there, and both of them had beautiful swings and hit the green in regulation. So we all had dry balls, which was nice.
And we all had pars. We walked out of there. Everybody parred.
Yeah. I had a nice chip that, I don't know, probably made it to like 4 or 5 feet, and then was able to sink the putt. So yeah, that was good.
So that was kind of consolation prize in it all. But the cool thing is you take this little boat out there called the Putter. It's like this kind of cute little sort of lake boat, but it's on a line that goes kind of connected between the green and the shore. And the cool thing about the green is actually you can dial the distance, so the green kind of moves back and forth based on how far you want it to be that day, which was really cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to play that thing from the tips.
No, yeah, that was pretty tough. So then we peeled out of there. We were leaving early the next morning, headed back to DC, and so we decided to go back through Spokane and kind of down through Washington, Eastern Oregon, kind of down that way back to Boise. I thought that drive was like being on the surface of the moon. It was
Yeah.
it was incredibly rural. There was nothing really out there at all.
Yeah, after you get through Spokane, there's not a whole lot of anything until you get back to kind of the Boise area.
Yeah, I thought it was just spectacular country. I mean, it's very, very rural road, and it was really pretty. But we stopped at in Spokane and hit another coffee shop there.
Yeah, so we did. I had reached out to a guy. So there's a guy. Shout out to Ben Matthews on Instagram. He runs a coffee account. I think it's like Bentham Brews or something like that. So I remember that he was in Spokane. That's where him and his wife live. So I had reached out to him. I said, hey, if I can only go to one coffee shop in Spokane, where should I go? And he gave me a couple of recommendations. So we ended up landing at Ladder Coffee Roasters in Spokane. And yeah, that was great. We made a little pit stop and yeah, gave us some fuel for the ride.
Yeah. And we peeled off, and yeah, it was about 7.5 hours. But the drive back was really, truly spectacular. Driving through national forests and kind of making your way up and down these grades, way out in the middle of nowhere. If you want a fun thing to do, just jump on to Google Maps and go out on some of those rural roads and drop the little guy down in there. It's a pretty amazing. But overall, what were your thoughts about the trip? Where would you like to go next? Where do you think we should go?
Yeah, I mean, Idaho is just a spectacular state. I think when people think about going out west, people think about Montana or Wyoming or certainly Colorado, but I think Idaho kind of gets slept on, and I think it's wonderful. I mean, obviously your parents live out there, so we've been out there a couple of times, but yeah, I'm eager to return to Boise. I'd go out there to play golf. We've gone out there to hunt before, but yeah, I'd spend more time there for sure. And so, yeah, as far as next year, I mean, we've kicked around the idea of coming back to North Carolina. Obviously, at some point we'd all like to go to Wisconsin. There are just so many, unbelievable courses up there. But yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. Hopefully, my house is at capacity, so unless I move, it's gonna be hard to house you and Colby. But
we'll be sharing the couch.
Yeah, there's plenty of courses left to play in North Carolina, and I think all of us would like to go back to Pine Needles. So we'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah, that's true. Well, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you coming on the Grounds and Review. And with that, we'll wrap it up. But looking forward to more episodes. I think I'm going to do a review about Whiskey Creek Golf Club, which is just up north near Frederick. Played there at a Broken Tea Society event. And then got a good coffee episode that I'm hoping is gonna stick. And then we'll continue to do the march through the fall lawn care. And until that, if you have any questions, comments, want us to review anything, shoot it to groundsunderreview@gmail.com. And we'll do a mailbag episode when we get some good content. But until then, thanks for joining us on Grounds Under Review.